for people who do seek asylum from Mexico, do you think they should remain in Mexico while they seek asylum?
Yeah. Historically, it's been shown that people who claim asylum are full of it. In my opinion, if we could deport the criminals that are Native American, I would.
Would you vote for Donald Trump if it is the case that he like wanted to like leave women's right to vote up to the states?
Yes. If it were true that you would have a better society and outcomes, better well-being in a society if women didn't vote, would you be for women voting still?
Did you vote for Donald Trump?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, why did you vote for Donald Trump?
Mostly for immigration, but there's several other issues.
What about immigration?
I think that it can be very harmful for a society to have too many people come in too fast unlawfully. And so I was hoping for a orderly, lawful way of immigrants coming in.
So do you agree with the bipartisan border bill by the Democrats?
There were some good things in it, some bad. Well, I don't know. I really don't think it was needed to accomplish the goal.
What's the goal?
The goal is to have more lawful entry of immigrants.
Okay, so you want more legal immigration. Okay, so then why don't we just make it so that anyone who's in the country who hasn't committed a violent crime or has a history of committing violent crime or any bad crime like that, well, then they should be allowed to be a citizen, because then that would incentivize them to get legal citizenship, correct?
To me, then it becomes an issue of fairness. So have you ever been to Disneyland or Disney World?
I've been to Disneyland, yeah.
Have you ever been in one of those long lines for an hour? And then how would you feel if someone cut in front of you and didn't have to wait at all?
They actually have those things, you know, that they have like at Disneyland. They have like these little passes that every once in a while,
Yeah, but
get to the front of the line.
Can you answer my question? Let's say you personally,
totally fine with it.
You're totally fine with waiting in line for 1 hour, and then someone who hasn't waited at all just cuts in front of the line.
Yeah, that's the process of how Disneyland operates.
No,
I'm totally fine with Disneyland operating in the way it does currently in terms of the
So
line.
you're okay with line cutting?
Yeah, the fast passes. Yeah,
I'm talking about. It doesn't have to be Disney. It could be anything. A long line. You're in line, and someone just cuts it in front of you and doesn't have to wait at all. You're okay with that?
If it's an unjustified line, then absolutely. Like I think that the line shouldn't even exist.
An unjustified line.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'll give you an example, right? If it is the case that like there's going to be some unnecessarily lengthy line that you don't need to go through in order to be able to have a efficient process, like you're going to just literally allow more people in quicker, right, through having a investment in the system to make it go faster. But we choose not to, so we make the system, right, purposefully, right, like backed up. Obviously it would make sense in that context because it's purposefully backed up, right, and it's unnecessary.
Purposely backed up. But do you think it takes time to do background checks on people?
Sure, but not 5 to 7 years on average. You have to agree at that. That's purposefully backing up the immigration process because you want to limit how many people are coming to the country.
What makes you think it's purposeful?
Because that's what Republicans say all the time. Donald Trump says it. It's not. It's very clear in the rhetoric. I mean, how many people do you want in the country every year to immigrate? Do you think there's a specific number?
No, I don't think. There's good data on what's the best optimum, but my main issue is that we should know who's coming into the country as best as we can. That's reasonable, right?
Oh, absolutely. That means that we should incentivize people who are in the country who are undocumented, right, by giving them a pathway to citizenship if they've not committed violent crimes or bad crimes, right?
Yet,
so that we know who they are.
Right. So you rather vet them while they're in the country rather than out?
I would rather vet them at any point in time in that process. I'd rather them be vetted rather than not vetted. Correct.
Well, let me ask you.
I'd rather them to be not exploited than to be
right. I agree with you. It's better to vet than not vet. But you just said
I would rather vet before, right? But given that the process is inefficient, I understand that we would vet after in some circumstances.
Okay, but you would prefer we vet before they even come into the country, yes?
Absolutely, but there are plenty of tourists that come to the country that aren't fully vetted in a certain sense. So I don't know why you're only applying this process to.
No, I would apply this to even people flying in from other countries.
Well, and asylum. You agree that the asylum process, right? In some instances, there's going to be people with valid asylum claims that before we even went through the process, right, we're going to allow them in the country. Or do you fully and 100% disagree with the asylum process?
During the Biden administration, I wouldn't say fully, but mostly, yeah.
Oh, okay. What do you mean by so there are some circumstances at least where you do believe that they should be able to stay in the country before you actually vet the claim?
No, that they have to go through the port of entry, number one, and then that's where they're vetted.
Okay, so vetted at the port of entry. So,
Yeah.
okay, you can do it immediately. Okay, so then you don't need a 6 month. You don't even need a 6 month process under your view. You don't even need a 5 year process. You can do it immediately at the border for
No, no,
everyone.
no, no, no. You can still do your preliminary vetting at the port of entry. But what happened under the Biden administration is people were crossing at a non-port of entry, claiming asylum, and then getting to stay in the country.
You understand that he did sign a bill specifically to get people to go through ports of entry, and also I don't even see how
Right?
that
Yeah.
wasn't. I don't even see how
Yeah.
that is an issue, given
But the
that they're
question is
seeking
of
asylum. They don't.
enforcement.
Under international law, they did not have to go through a port of entry. That's something designated specifically that Republicans begged Biden for, and
Well,
Biden literally conceded to the Republicans on that one.
well, if you're going through by international law, then you have to go to the first country that will take you, which would be
That's not.
Mexico for many of them.
Can you wait? That's not necessarily true.
Are you sure?
No, it's not the next country right next to you.
No, no, the first country that will take you.
It's not the first country that will just take you. It's going to be give me the language specifically that it uses. Isn't it about like it's about going to be like that would
Well, you
protect
can
you
Google
based
it for
upon
yourself right
it's
now,
it's
but
going to be based upon that protected class. So in some circumstances, right, the countries right next to them won't protect them in the case of that protected class. So they would be at the same issue that they would be seeking asylum from in the first place.
is that the case for Mexico?
It depends on the context. There are some people who do seek asylum from Mexico, but that's not true always. Now, for people who do seek asylum from Mexico, do you think they should remain in Mexico while they seek asylum?
Yeah. What's wrong? What's wrong with that?
They're seeking asylum from Mexico. Why would they remain in the country
Oh,
that
no,
they're
no, no.
seeking
Oh, you
asylum
said
from?
from Mexico. Yeah,
Yes.
I would say they would have to show that Mexico is persecuting them. Do you think Mexico is persecuting people?
Wait. But while they show that process, can it be in some circumstances there are valid asylum claims from Mexico? Absolutely. And you understand that like, it doesn't have to be straight from like the Mexican government. It could be based on any other type of context, right? There could
Yeah,
be.
if there's a valid claim of persecution from Mexico and you're a Mexican, then you would go through the port of entry. And then in that case, I'd be okay with them staying in the
Oh,
country.
but before you validate the claim?
Yeah, but
Okay.
that hasn't been the case
Oh,
for the
wait.
last 4 years.
So then why were you bringing this up as like an issue with me that like I'd be okay with people in the country before we validated the claim?
Okay, but did you hear how reasonable I was? I said in some cases, yeah, I would be okay with it. But would you admit that in most cases in the past 4 years, that most people were not seeking asylum from Mexico, meaning they're Mexicans seeking asylum
Yeah,
from.
I agree. Most people were not
Okay,
seeking
so
asylum from Mexico.
now practically we have a situation where if someone is claiming asylum, and by the way, the vast majority of people who claim asylum, their asylum cases are rejected. It's the vast majority. Are you aware of that?
So that's you're talking like 60% for other types of for other administrations. It was bumped up to 90% by Trump's administration. So I don't see that why that would be rightful given like the
No,
historical
that's
trend of
showing you
things.
that when due process is enacted, there's the key.
No,
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 listen to
that's
me.
there was a
Let me
natural
finish
trend,
my
and then Donald
sentence.
Trump explicitly decided to do more.
Even with Biden, Obama, I think historically the vast majority of people who claim asylum do not meet the requirements of asylum.
When
Do
you
you
say
agree or
vast majority,
disagree?
so do you think 60% is a vast majority?
Oh, a majority. Okay, we can get
Sure,
rid of the word vast if you like. But do you
sure.
agree with that?
Sure. That means you need to rework the process to make it faster for people who are for us to process the claims for people who are already in the country. Because the issue is that you're gonna have 40% of people who have to stay in the countries that they're seeking asylum from in order to be able to like who have valid asylum claims. And we want them to, if they have valid asylum claims, to be in the country. I thought you guys were
Right.
so pro due process, right?
Yeah. Well, we if we do due process, historically it's been shown that people who claim asylum are full of it.
So again, 40% of people, right, being valid asylum claims, right? You would not want to treat those 40% of valid asylum claims in a
Yeah.
manner in
Now,
which
if they have a
them are
valid,
harmed.
if they is your main issue like the speed?
Yeah, I think the speed should go faster. That's what the
Well, I don't
bipartisan border bill
necessarily
does.
agree with. I don't necessarily disagree with you on speed, but well, I'm going to more of a fundamental issue of do we do this vetting process, this um, more so within the country or without. And I already conceded to you that there might be cases where it can be within, but I would say for the majority of the time, it should be without. Meaning that we do our vetting, the due process, while people are outside the country. Isn't that reasonable?
So I mean, I think that in plenty of circumstances we can do it while they're within, and it makes sense for us to do it while they're within because you're going to be impacting a high percentage of the population that have valid asylum claims.
Right, but that's not what I asked. I asked, would you agree that there are at least some cases, if not the majority of the cases,
There could
where
be there could be some cases, right, where there could be like say a particular thing that there's a flag in the system where this person could have a criminal background. Then you would want it in that context, right? Other than that, obviously, like I think that people should be allowed to stay in the country, right, while their asylum claim is being processed.
so yeah, maybe it's just a agree to disagree on that one. But what do you believe that every immigrant that comes into the country? Oh well,
Here, can
let's
I ask
put
you a certain question? I think I could frame it in a way in which would give us productive dialogue. So, in terms of this, how many, like, in a general terms, like, how long do you think it should take for people to get into the country?
how long should it? That's such a subjective question. I mean,
Yeah, of course,
I
that's why I asked you.
I think several years is okay because, and here's why. I think it takes time to vet. I think it also takes time to see what's needed for the country. Like, I'm not just talking about asylum now. I'm talking about all cases of immigration. So depending on what industries need what workers and so forth, I think that all takes time. And my, I guess, presupposition is that the United States government doesn't owe immigrants a thing. And that's what we might disagree on that. You might think that there's an inherent responsibility of the United States to save as many people in the world as they can. Although I kind of agree with the sentiment that it's nice to help people, I would disagree with the sentiment that the United States has an obligation to save the world. And so if, let's say it takes 10 years, and we both would agree that that's too long, well, it sucks for the immigrant, but we don't owe the immigrant anything.
Okay, here's my question.
Did you
Alice,
hear what I said? I know you were very
yes,
busy doing
yeah,
other stuff.
I was typing specifically down a note so that I could refer to you and respond to you.
Okay,
Is
okay.
that fair? So in terms of Ellis Island, right? Like, do you disagree with Ellis Island, right, level immigration in the early 1900s? Because it was a lot faster than that.
Do I disagree with Ellen a lot faster than what?
Do you know what Ellis Island is?
Yeah, I think you're talking about the early immigration in the early 20th century, but what does that have to do with anything?
Yeah, I'm asking you, do you disagree with the immigration that came to the country,
The
right?
speed
Yeah,
or the
the speed or just in general, like
No, I don't
immigrants
necessarily
don't
disagree
come.
with the speed.
Oh, okay, but that was a lot faster than a few years.
Okay, well, what's your point?
Then why do you think it should have been faster then, but not now?
Did I say that?
Yeah, you did say it should take years.
Would How long did it take at Ellis Island?
Probably like within days. Like let me check.
So they had no vetting then?
Very little. What
Well,
was
then I changed my answer. If they didn't do any vetting, that's bad. And I think you agree with that because we both agree that there should be vetting. And if they're doing vetting like in an hour, well,
approximately
okay,
3 to 7 hours? Wow.
okay, yeah.
Wow,
Now,
dude. Really? That's nuts. Yeah, no.
would you say that's too
Then
fast?
so then you disagree with that, correct?
I find it. I'm skeptical you can do proper vetting in that short of time frame, and I
I'm
think you are too.
wait, but so then you think that the group of people that's in the United States is sufficient enough currently, right? That we should maintain it, correct?
Maintain what?
The population, right? The population that came from those immigrants, right? That population is good, correct?
Some good, some bad, just like the immigrants today.
Mostly good,
We got to
correct?
vet them.
Mostly good though, correct? So you
Yeah,
could
I would
say
say
that
so.
you could say
Mostly
you
good.
wait, so you could say that you think that there should be a little bit more vetting, but the fact that they were able to do it in 3 to 7 hours then, right, is actually diabolical, right? in comparison to the fact that it takes this
What was
long.
different back in the early 1900s compared to today?
You tell me.
I'm asking you.
It's going to be less technology.
And what else? What about think what government's role has been and was?
So you're saying that like government's role wasn't to maintain the safety of people?
No. How many social programs were available in the early 1900s?
Not very many. I'm not disputing that.
Okay. So do you
That's
think there's more
wait,
at
so,
stake
so that,
now
wait, so then you,
compared to back then?
but my point is that you do agree with this type of immigration, and Trump supporters typically do agree with this type of
Hey, if you
immigration.
can, I don't
And
disagree.
they typically agree with that, probably because most of the immigrants who came from there are European.
What is your first name, Parker?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure that we disagree on if you can vet efficiently, I'm all for that. If you can actually do a thorough vetting within hours, sign me up.
Okay. Okay. So then you'd be
So we
okay.
don't disagree on that.
So
But
you'd be okay
we
you'd be
both agree though that vetting should be done, right?
absolutely
And we both agree it should be done prior to entry, correct?
not in all instances. We both
Right,
agreed
right,
on that.
right. But mostly, right?
Oh, obviously that'd be preferable, right? But not in all instances would that be the case, and I'd be
Okay.
okay with it not being the case.
So if you're okay with, or if we agree that the vetting should be mostly done prior to entry, mostly,
Yeah,
not all the time,
it's say that's preferably to do so.
would you say that's what happened in the last 4 years under the Biden administration?
I would think plenty were, right, and that they tried to
The
do a
majority
policy
is my question.
they tried to do a policy particularly for that, and again, Republicans didn't want it, right?
But
Because
that
they
was my
followed
question. My
Trump.
question, do you think it actually happened? That there was thorough vetting prior to
Yes,
entry?
typically
Really?
yes, yes.
And so the vetting was just bad and so many criminals did get through?
I think wait, so criminals? Where are you getting criminals? You're scared about criminals coming to the country, but you're not scared about them being president of the
No,
United
hang
States.
on. Do you
You're not
disagree that
scared about them being released into the country by the criminal president of the
Parker,
United States. You didn't care about that.
Parker,
But
true or
apparently it's an
false,
issue.
criminals
If
came into the country?
obviously there was some proportion of people, but it was a smaller proportion of people than natural born
Correct.
US citizens. So if
Correct.
anything, they reduced the probability of there being violent criminals in the country.
Let's say it's 1/10 the
Did you hear
normal
what I said? Can
population.
you repeat to me
Yeah,
what I just said?
you said that the immigrants coming in have a lower propensity to crime or percentage of the general population than the Native American.
So if anything, they reduced the crime rate.
Okay. Yes. Now let me ask you: if we
Okay, if
had
you concede to that, that's hilarious.
no, I can concede it, and still it doesn't change my
It
point.
does. If immigrants
Parker,
reduce
listen.
the crime rate, then why are you arguing that they're bringing crime into the country?
True or false? Criminals entered the country during the
Sure.
Biden administration.
True. True or
Now,
false, right? There were less criminals, right, in the country, right, because of immigration to a higher extent.
yeah, as a percentage, I can give you that. But now, if you had 100, let's say there was only 100 criminals in the country, do you want it to be 101, just to lower the percentage?
If there were more people in the country, it would make sense.
So, okay, this is a fundamental disagreement. I think a lot of people on the left
Wait,
and right have.
okay, well then you don't want people to have more babies because there will be more criminals when they have babies.
Sure, if we could, in my opinion, if we could deport the criminals that are Native American, I would.
What are you talking about, bro? I know.
What are you talking about? No, seriously, Parker,
no,
would
I'm
you?
saying that you wanted to prevent. So I was just giving you an example, right? You should prevent people from getting more criminals into the country, right? From U.S. citizens that would be born in the country.
Right,
So
but we
prevent
can't
people from-
deport. We
so
can't
prevent people from
deport.
giving birth.
Parker, we cannot deport U.S. citizens, but we can prevent entry of immigrants who are criminals,
listen,
and you are for that.
Listen, but you can prevent if you in the same type of way people from getting pregnant. Then, right?
You can prevent.
Yes,
What kind
birth
of
control
rabbit
prevents
trail are you
people-
going down right now?
Birth control prevents people from getting pregnant, right?
So let me see if I can steelman you. You're saying
Abortion
that,
also prevents people from being pregnant.
yeah. So you're saying that um, you are trying to say that we should allow criminals to come in because we can't stop people from having babies?
You're not listening properly.
No, I am listening. I'm trying
you're
to
not.
figure out what your point is.
Wow. If that's what you're not listening at all, right? I'm giving you a critique to your position in terms of a logical extreme, right? Because it is the case that you think that there's nominally more criminals in the country, that means it's a worse off set of occurrences, right? So if
Yes.
there were a greater population, right, of U.S. born citizens, right, there would be more crime nominally, right? But
Right.
yet you would acknowledge that you would still see that as preferably.
Right. I would prefer less
Oh,
criminals. Yes.
wait, no. Okay, if you'd prefer less criminals, well, then you prefer less Americans.
But the difference between, I see what you're doing, but the difference here is we cannot control that as easily as we can control immigration.
Oh, yes, we
Unless,
can.
unless you want to go
You can make
say, if you want to
you
force
can make
sterilization and
no,
that
no, no.
sort of thing.
No, you can make abortion legal in the first
It,
trimester. Am I right?
it is legal in the United States.
Oh, so you think it should be, right?
I'm actually, yes,
Federally, right?
yes. I think
Okay.
abortion should be legal. I would say before what most people would say consciousness or
Oh,
the
okay.
neural network.
Then here's my question: would you vote for Donald Trump if it is the case that he like wanted to like leave women's right to vote up to the states?
Yes, I do think it should be a state thing.
Women's right to vote?
Oh, women's right to vote? Oh, I thought you said abortion.
No, I'm talking about women's right to vote
No, I would be against that.
being left up to the states.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't vote for him in that context.
Depends on who you're saying, like he's up against Harris.
Yeah.
That'd be a tough one.
No, I'm laughing because how insane you are. The fact that you laugh is actually crazy, dude.
No, Parker.
I'm laughing
listen,
because I'm literally laughing out of how crazy that is.
Parker, listen to me. This is going to be a tough question. If you're for all outcomes, I hope, like well-being, better society, right? You're for that.
How is? Please.
I just want to.
How this?
I just want to.
So
I just want to make that premise before I ask my question.
You don't know who you'd vote for if Donald Trump wanted to leave women's right to vote left up to the states.
I am saying that I am against that, but if depending on what other values that and issues and policies, it might outweigh it. But let me ask you this: if it were true that you would have a better society and outcomes, better well-being in a society if women didn't vote, would you be for women voting still?
Yes.
Why? You would end up with a worse society in this hypothetical.
Wait. So are you saying that
I'm asking you a question, Parker?
Yeah, I would prefer democracy over.
So you would rather? Okay, so you would prefer a democracy where you still have a democracy with men voting, but my question is a very tough one. I'll ask it again because I think you didn't quite hear me.
No,
so
I did hear you, and I did respond the way that I think.
So you rather have women vote in a worse society than only men vote in a better society?
And in a logically consistent hypothetical, absolutely. Now, would you like to respond to the idea that it is the case that not only
to me that's laughable?
Wait, no. You know what's laughable? The fact that you think that you would vote for someone who literally is against women's rights to vote. You understand that, right?
Is there someone against women's rights to vote now, or is this hypothetical?
Yeah, you would vote for Donald Trump, even though he literally wanted to restrict women's right to vote.
How so?
By leaving it up to the states.
What are you talking about?
That's the hypothetical.
Oh, okay. You're talking about hypothetical. Yes. Okay. Yeah. You gave me a hypothetical just now. I answered. I gave you a hypothetical, and we both think each other is crazy with our answers.
I understand that you think I'm crazy, but you're the one literally saying that you're okay with women not having the right to vote.
Right. And I understand that you think I'm crazy for saying that, but you're the one who said that you'd be willing to have a worse.
You said because it creates a better society. You're presupposing there's a better society, particularly from like women not having the right to vote. That is a presupposition that you're coming there. If you were to accept that in application to society, I'm not disputing that. Absolutely, I would promote democracy and women's right to vote, right, over like certain types of conditions like that. Yes. That is something that I view as like morally valuable, that women have the right to vote.
Why do you view democracy?
You see it as morally valuable that women have the right to vote.
Yes, I do. And I already conceded that I wouldn't want women to lose the right to vote. But
okay, so given that it is the case that Donald Trump was against women's right to vote, right, wanted to restrict it and leave it up to the states, tell me, what about Kamala Harris today?
Well, hang on, how do you know that?
Policy and about who she is as a person is worse than Donald Trump in that scenario.
Can you show me where Donald Trump said that he was trying to limit women's right to vote?
See, I'm giving a hypothetical to be able to show you that.
Okay, so you're not saying that he actually did that.
obviously. So I'm saying that there's not going to be a distinction that you can derive between a woman's right to vote and a woman's right to get access to an abortion in the first trimester, given that you believe in that. If it is the case that you're going to say that you wouldn't vote for him in the context of him wanting to leave women's right to vote up to the states. So it's about you. It's about questioning you in that context and being like, okay, what's the difference between these to say that you'd support him in one scenario but not the other? Does that make sense to you?
Uh, that analogy, I can see where it sort of makes sense, but I would say that there is a big difference between letting the states decide. I don't think the right to bodily autonomy is nearly the same as the right to vote. And the Supreme Court ruling did
I have
not.
a great question for you, actually. Would you?
Hang on, you've been asking all the questions in
No,
the
no.
last 5 minutes.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I have to answer this. I have to ask this because I don't want to lose it. Um,
Okay.
if it were going to be the case that restricting men's right to vote, right, provided better outcomes, would you support restricting men's right to vote?
Yes.
So we should restrict men's right to
In
vote.
other words, what I'm saying
Hold up.
is,
Literally, unironically, this guy is just going to argue, right? If we actually like look at reality and the way it is, that we should have restricted men's right to vote because they literally voted for Donald Trump, who actively tried to undermine our democracy, our rule of law, our constitution, who was held civilly liable. A woman who bragged about walking in the changing rooms of girls Miss USA because he quote unquote owns the place to inspect them without their consent. Literally, he cuts taxes predominantly for rich people at the expense of people who are in the middle class because tariffs regressively impact middle class individuals. So that's what you just did.